All right, welcome back to the final episode of this Age of Wonders 3 Wasteland expansion campaign overview. The Wasteland expansion is a modification, a mod for Age of Wonders 3. It's called Wasteland Expansion. It can be found in Steam Workshop section, and it's one of Gladen's. The creator is Gladen, and it's in Gladen's workshop. So this Wasteland expansion has a number of missions. This is the final one in this version of it that I downloaded at the time. I don't know if it's Horn of Kesh 6A, 6B, or 6C, but I know it's one of those three because the main hero I'm using is Reynald, and those are the options. Again, they're at the time of my downloading and the version I've been playing. There was no mission 5 available yet, but there is now for people who download it now. And when I'm saying now, it's fall of 2022 is when I'm recording this. So this is the final map, above and below ground. So I will walk us through it. So we start here. I forget if it was like an army plus some settlers, or if we started with these cities. I can't recall. But we start with this in here, and we have allies here, one ally here, and one ally here, and one ally here. And so those three allies you start with, and they have the cities that they have. And all they do is basically, if and until you clean out most of the map, they're just tuckered into their spots. They don't do much in the way of offense. They only come out once it's clearly safe. So this involved killing a Frostling sorcerer and a Frostling rogue. And then it is not possible. Like, I looked everywhere for the Frostling Dreadnought. Like, I have explored the entirety of the map, and it seems like they might have like a capital city somewhere up here. I'm not sure, but all these blues you see, it's stupid that like they have such similar colors, like the Crudenia Draconian Rogue versus the Frostling Dreadnought. But basically, like, it doesn't seem like this version I downloaded is fully complete. It seems like there's kind of a bug or an oversight in that I can't complete this map, but it's completed and dominated as much as I can. Specifically, it's like take over the region. You must defeat Zarkan, defeat Malkar, but I've done everything that I can. So I assume this would be fixed in a later version, or maybe I just missed something. But let me walk you through the flow. So we start here, we push up into here. There were huge early armies here, like huge late game cluster of armies, like a double stack or triple stack. I wonder if I saved that battle, because that was nuts. But basically, like, I lost a healthy chunk of my starting force, but was able to keep my most important units alive. And I was willing to do that because it would allow me to, I don't know if it was take over. Yeah, I think it allowed me to take over this Frostling city that was here. Or no. It was ruined. So I planted a Nomad settler, but then because there's so much snow, the Nomads hate the ice, and so I'm like, okay, fine, I'll have to migrate it to Frostlings. But why I was excited about this city is because of the Altar of Bound Souls. And so what happens is the support units you create out of the city, because of the Bound Souls thing, have resurgence. So it's really convenient, super convenient for lossless battles. And so I churned out a ton of of these frostling white witches, and a ton of them. And I was doing this pretty early on in the game, and so they all had resurgence. So they didn't. I was going fast enough where they didn't make a huge difference. They helped with the final cleanup nicely, but they were never decisive, unfortunately. But I took over the city as quickly as I can. I got the production up as fast as I can so I could produce white witches one a turn with resurgence, because I knew that would be helpful. And this, I was pumping out those outlaw watchmen one every 3 turns, and pumped out several of them. I planted a lot of cities. I pushed up through here, and then my path was like taking over these cities, and then I think I took over this, and then swung up this way, and then a big stack popped out of the underground, and I rebuffed them here, but they took over this city. And so basically I had a force that swept up here, up and around. So we basically swept up and around, and like this and like this. And so I basically got to a place where I was taking and holding this city here. So originally I took this and kind of held this, and then was exploring up into here and up into here. And then as I pushed enough, then I held here and continued to expand. But for a while, this was kind of my front in this area. I kind of kept some secondary strong units here while I pushed around south. And the map's it's kind of interesting. And I like the kind of the build of the map and some of the fun structures and little design things that they did. But I swept out through the bottom here. They have this cursed valley thing here, which is kind of cool, some of the stuff they did. But then there's like a little thing out here, this Sphinx. Why is that a Sphinx temple? It should be a dungeon. That's weird. That's weird. Can't explain that. Should be called a dungeon, what they call the Sphinx temple. But basically, yeah, I swept out through there, took some remaining cities here, and basically I sought to take over the overworld. My ally from down here eventually ventured out and took some of these cities for themselves. I never took over a lizard dwelling. Are both of these lizardmen dwellings? I should have done that, because and I think this is the first time where I saw this, but like, check these guys out. So this guy's like a trooper, like and there's a tier 4 you can produce from this, but like a solid melee, phase, overwhelm, drenched. That's interesting. So there's like a frost and shock weakness, and they deal frost and shock damage. Water shield, make them a little bit tankier. Total awareness, first strike, so they're always first striking in any direction. And they're together in the same stack. Oh, that's interesting. Lizardman bond, plus 150, plus 150. Armored scales. And then, yeah, some like little bits of protection across the board. So like these guys are tanky. And I would send a hero of mine up in their face, and like one hero could like trade equal blows with one lizardman quarreler. So they were like pretty solid tier 4s. I think they're probably a little OP, a little imbalanced. So my ally took these over, but it would have been kind of fun to take these over and play around with them. But they're so far up in the corner of the map, I'd never been able to like make good use of them. So I took over the overground, and I made sure to guard this entrance. Like I always had a triple stack sitting on the entrance like this, so that if they attacked up, they'd be attacking up into stuff. So I kept that entrance plugged pretty early as I expanded through the rest of the map. And then they at one point tried to venture out here, but I was able to squash them when they popped up pretty fast. this is like a dead end into this interesting place here where like this was blocked off, and so I was able to like burrow in, and there was like a fun item, like a seduce item, I think, down here. You can't see, there's no way, so it's like they have little stuff here just to be a tease, but you can't get through here, but there's like more here. So I think these areas are probably still underdeveloped in it, and maybe are the place where that remaining enemy is hiding. But I explored as much of the map as I could. Down here, this was walled off, and so I had to like take the time just after I had mostly won, but was still exploring, to take a boulder, pierce through the wall, and like there's a fun little Naga dwelling back here. And so like all these cities were owned by the Frostling Dreadnought, which I was not looking forward to going against. But I kept them sealed, kept them from coming up, through the entrance there and through the entrance there. Kept them plugged in and dealt with them last. So I just sent overwhelming amounts of troops down here. So that's the overview. In terms of some key units, I have Global Assault up, so everything's gold rank. So that's why everything looks good. That Jin got to champ level. There was some point where like some units were abandoned, and then I was able to pick them up for free. They offered to join, which is kind of interesting. There's my ally. I took that over late. You can see I've surrounded them at this point. Oh, yeah, never mind. Okay, I'm being silly. So this here, that's Jackalborn, and this is their capital city. And so when I take this over, okay, so that's completed. So, okay, yeah, so that's weird. So he's still not crossed out, even though that was their capital and I killed the leader. And it says defeated there. Oh, okay, it just updated. That's weird. Okay, so they're all dead, but Zargan and Malkar are still here, and I have no idea who Zargan and Malkar are, because all our enemies are dead. And so is it like one of our allies' units? Doesn't seem like it. Are any of you Zarkan or Malkar? Where is that black stack? I guess that's you. That's Urena. I have no idea. Yeah, so I don't know what's up with that, but I assume it's unfinished, because I tried to like go everywhere I could, but I think I fully explored. I don't think there were any like cavern walls that I could pierce through or something that I was missing, but I explored everywhere I could. But like they tucked away like little wizard towers and things like that. The big shtick with this is that at some point early in the map, like around here, I was able to pick up a Summon Spirit Elemental, and that was really useful. These were extremely late game. I didn't pick up these until late game. They weren't available, but Summon Spirit Elemental was super useful. Look at that, 210. This is my like first Spirit Elemental summon. So Champion 11, crazy town. But the reason why these are so dope is that I faced a lot of frost, and so they're 80% frost resistant. I faced some shock, and they're 80% shock resistant. Not much in the way of spirit, and I did face some blight, but it was pretty thin most of the time. So the spirit elementals hard countered a lot of the enemies. So these summons proved to be super useful. So I really took use of that. Yeah, Champ 4, Champ 2. So those are some of my original guys there. Where else were my original stacks? I think I had some down here, maybe. Okay, so Reynold, this is where he ended. Most of this is the same. I picked up like 2 frost protection things so that I could guarantee this, because your Nomads use 40% frost weakness, which makes the frostlings difficult to deal with. But I was able to pick up a bunch of stuff to get the frost protection. But I couldn't have both like frost and shock protection fully up. But I was able to get some pretty decent resistances, keep the defense up. This was a late game pickup, never had a chance to really use that. +4 there. Put the Siren's Wheel here. This guy I seduced pretty late in the game, and it was pretty easy to level him up, especially because they had this like resurgence jewel item, which made it easy. This fearsome shield. Picked up a Manticore mount. Now, the weird thing that happened is, after starting here, you remember I had that rogue hero? I started with the rogue hero and Reynold, the Nomad Warlord, but after the first save or turn or whatever, it was basically like, no matter what I did, I think it was after like loading a save. So unless you could complete the map in one sitting, after reloading a save, the rogue was gone, and all the items were in a sack on the hex where he used to be. And so there's some glitchy thing where they just kill off your rogue, which probably was not meant to be, and it made this map harder because I wasn't able to have a second hero for a long time until I seduced this guy into joining. And that was annoying, but we made do, and I had to figure out something else. But I picked up this Dreadnought Rogue, which was mildly helpful. I tried to pick up a Frostling Necromancer, which could have been a lot of fun for picking up some tier 4s that normally you're not able to utilize because of the mind control immunity, but that did not work out. I'm not sure. So that guy I had for a while, this guy I had for a while. This guy, yeah, 140 on that. This guy I had from the very beginning, Champ 7, super high, 151. Those are all new. So, yeah, that's the overview of stuff. Oh, that's so interesting. Huh. I wonder if that's enough. Maybe, I don't even know. What else is there to say? I researched through everything. I ran out of things to research. You all saw this. I used this a ton. I got the draft up late. I got Inspire Loyalty up late. I got Global Assault up late. I death marched a little bit. Didn't use much else. This was unique in that because so much of the overworld was ice, I wasn't able to do like build a bunch of settlers and just spread Nomad everywhere. And so I had to lose a city to migration. I only founded a few nomadic cities, and I had to basically, when I took over Frostling cities, I had to absorb them, which took a long time. And as you can see, that a bunch of towns and cities and metropolises. So my Frostling race governance got all the way. Yep, so a lot of that. 218. The Frostling Ice Queens were all late game. I never had a chance to use them. The White Witches helped out with a little bit late game. I had a Watchman or two that was doing good work from early. The Nomad Jinn were late game, but I was building a bunch out of some great templed Nomad cities because I anticipate I would need them for the push into taking out the Dreadnought. So between the White Witches and the Nomad Jinn, and the Outlaw Watchman, those were like the 3 units that I sent in large waves into the underground to take out the final Frostling Dreadnought. And I just threw wave after wave and lost a bunch. And it was just a matter of a war of attrition at that point. That was a very late pick. I didn't have much time to do anything with that. Yeah, so I think that's all I have to say about that. Now, okay, so let's see, where are we at? So we're at 21 minutes. I do have some tasty battles to show from this, so I'm going to pause this and cue those up. 1 sec. Okay, yeah, so you remember early on when I said there was like a massive enemy units and then like this ruins that could be settled to fill out. So this was the remnants of the battle. So let me show you what this looked like. So they attacked into me, so you can see they had some beefy units. You know, they've got Frost Dragon, Manticore, some Warbreens, some Ice Queens, some Phalanx, Manticore. So like mostly like top tier units here, right? And so this is what I had. I had my kitted out Warlord, I had my Warbreed, I had a Chthonic Guardian that I think seduced from an early structure and was sad about losing. Sad about losing a Watchman, though not the end of the world. Sad about using this gold Chieftain because I like the bestow regen thing. I lost out a snake that I was looking forward to upgrading. Thankfully, I kept my Spider Queen. But I lost a Nomad, Monster Hunter, another guy I was hoping to upgrade. Don't care about that. A few Elephants, which is whatever. A Mystic, which is whatever. Chieftain, which was too bad. So let's see how I did this. So I knew that they would attack and I would suffer losses, but I was basically, I wanted this guy to take most of the attacks, but they couldn't take all of the attacks. I would have to do some spreading out. And so I wanted to have this guy mostly taking most of the brunt of the assault, but not all of it. And I did okay. So you can see I'm kind of trying to position him out here, but with 3 hexes around him covered to mitigate some of the intensity of the damage. And at this point, with Last Stand fortified, so you can see he's taking about 3 hits of damage. On average, it's 2 to 3 damage, and then that he's taking because this is so high, even versus like Manticores and Warbreeds and stuff. And so the lifesteal is working out, and so now letting him take most of it, but then I'm also trying to park some people into the corner, so adjusting him a bit. So again, like with the ranged, I had to be careful because some of that cold and some of that, and the lucky on here was procking like crazy, because again he's very lucky and very high morale, so he's self-sustaining pretty good around health, and so trying to take out some of these people. That hurt. So they're losing interest in the hero because they're like, well, I don't want to go after this guy. I'm going to get absolutely destroyed. It's always weird when they move around because they think they're reducing movement points, but when you're tireless, it doesn't do anything. So they're just like throwing themselves into the blender. But that dragon's breath really made my day sad. But I did need to keep my hero on defense. It's too bad my hero hit its skill ceiling so fast, but just cleaning up. So that was pretty nasty. So I didn't like the losses, but it worked out okay. And I had a bunch of like low T1 units that I end up losing. But now this is cleared, and I'll be able to take this out and other stuff. So let me show you the next battle. One second. All right, we're back. Now it's turn 44, and we had some tasty battles. I'll show that next. It's a third. Okay, so doing that. That's low key. This is low key. That is low key. Is any of this interesting? So I guess, okay. So we will show this starting here. It's annoying because at this point, this Frostling sorcerer has stun. And so I had to be super careful about getting stunned. And what did it? Let's see. So at this point, I had this level 10 at the time person here. Right, I had this going. So I'm immune to frost here, but not to shock, because I wanted to have full frost and I couldn't afford a slot to get this shock in here. So he has to be careful about getting stunned, but thankfully his resistance is so high. But a lot of these units, not so much these, because they're 80% stun protection. So again, these proved super useful. Here's these tanky boy lizardman quarrelers, by the way. Why is it so slow? Oh yeah, so he doesn't get stunned. I use the Dreadnought's like force field spell. Oh yeah, I use a force field spell to keep him from getting stunned, because if he's stunned, he'll go down fast, and his awesomeness becomes significantly less awesome. But the dazed was really coming in handy from these guys. But yeah, the annoying thing about these Frostlings is all their support units could both stun and freeze. So like my T4s kept getting frozen. It was super annoying to have to deal with. Super annoying to have to deal with. But the dazeds were coming in clutch. But yeah, between the being able to be stunned and frozen, it was just brutal. Okay, that's a good example right here you saw, where I've got my 1912 hero kitted out as such, going up against this lizardman quarreler. Oh, Jeebus. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. Yoicks. So, yeah, it's this like lizardman quarreler who's going up against, I guess that battle was mostly done, but going up against my hero, and they were like basically just locking each other down, but nobody was dying super fast. Like this guy with this sort of attack of like 15-3 was doing very little against that lizardman quarreler. And so they're just super tanky units. But I think you saw most of the last, and And this like chaos magic is what's leading to the mutated, and so they get random things like that. But yeah, so that's that battle. Yeah, just going at it there. I don't know if it's necessary to see this. We'll take a quick peek. But it's like a series of 3 battles where thankfully I was able to take on like basically 2 stacks at a time. And Syron was real nice for a group of units being able to come in and do damage and then shield up, but unfortunately those port ends by the Frostling Queens and then breaking down like the guard breaker stuff was super annoying. Yeah, these Frostlings were annoying to deal with. It was a good adversary to include on this map because they are, especially as nomads, quite challenging. See, both of my snakes are frozen, in part because their resistance is not super great. But you know, they can hardly do anything against like the frost damage. Doesn't do very well against the spirit elementals, so that was proving very useful. Almost lost my snake. Yeah, so I think that's the gist of that. But yeah, definitely annoying to have to fight. So I think that's all I needed to show you. So to wrap up, thanks for checking out this series. If you made it this far, remember that this is the Wasteland expansion mod, and it comes with a campaign, which is pretty unique and cool. It's a lot of fun. I recommend it. What I think I might do next is I might download the latest version of the mod as of fall 2022 and try and play through it, but suck during the first mission, so I get sent on that different path. So I get to see those like 1B, 2B, 3B, 4B, 6B or whatever. Like I get to see those alternative maps because I assume I don't know if it's the same map but like a slightly different version or objective on the same maps. That would make sense. Or it might be completely different maps. And I think I'll try and play it. And if they end up being completely different maps, I think I'll play through the rest of the series, and maybe this time around I will I don't know if I'll record more carefully at the end of every 5 or 10 turns to recap and do a more thorough recap of what it's like to experience it, or if I might just leave the recording running the whole time to do a play-by-play to give people a rich experience of doing it. I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking about doing. And thanks for watching this video series. Again, big props to the developer of this expansion. It's really nice to have another campaign to be able to play that's geared towards advanced players. So a huge shout out to Gladen for making this Wasteland expansion, for being so invested in like continuing to build it out and flesh it out, and the complexity of the different branching paths it can take depending on how you perform in battles is really, really cool. So really a fun thing. Highly recommended if you're watching this video. This video series, there's been a lot of spoilers, of course, but hopefully you'll give yourself a chance to play it yourself, or at least do some like new random maps and play as Nomad as a race to see how you like it. Having played them in the campaign and thinking about like, would I want to play them as a race over the other races that are available? I don't know that I would. I think that the Jinn, which is unlocked at that second governance level, I think the Jinn unit is really strong, and the fact that you can build them from great templed cities rather than having to summon them, despite them being, having the incorporeal and a lot of resistances, and being able to stun at gold rank and deal shock damage. I think that is really, it's a really powerful, I think they're tier 2 rather than tier 3. It's a really powerful tier 2 unit. And so I think that could be a really strong aspect. I think the bestow regen from the, what is it? What are these guys? I think the Nomad Chieftains, in terms of, like, the Oil Bolt feels really underwhelming, but the throw Fire Plague to help them level up. And if your enemies are not weak to fire, when they resist throw Fire Plague, it reduces movement. So it's a way to, like, temporarily, like, stiffen limb them or reduce their movement. But the bestow regen, it just feels really good, especially if you can put it on a tanky unit to help kind of keep it alive a bit. The Nomad Apprentice unit, with its like magic lamp to bestow lucky and the ability to do a random ranged attack, is a lot of fun and really, really useful. The elephant unit they have is decent, as decent as, a mammoth rider is for the frostlings. Their tier 1 archer is solid for base defense. If for some reason you have to use a lot of tier 1 units, they're decent in terms of the spearman having a ranged throw option as a pikeman. I've only seen what the, and I guess, yeah, so, and I should clarify that the Nomad Apprentice, that's a class unit associated with a sorcerer, and you only get to play a sorcerer the very first map. And so that's not a unit you can build all the time. But if you happen to be sorcerer class, I think that's a pretty strong unit with those buffs, a really strong apprentice version that you can have. But then I only have experience with the Warlord Nomad versions, and I don't think they are particularly stand out in terms of units. Yeah, I don't think they're super amazing. Let's see, Manticore. Let's see, Nomad Manticore. So the flaming charge is kind of like the human, like the whatever was that devastating charge. So the +4 damage, like it's the equivalent of a +4 flame. Do they always have crippling wounds? It looks like they always do have crippling wounds. So I think it's, this is decent. -1 defense. Oh, I mistakenly earlier said it was like a +1 defense, I think. So it's kind of more of a glass cannon thing with the enhanced melee strength, but the reduced defense. So in terms of, like, the Nomad Warlord units, they're okay. What is it? Phalanx. So, like, human phalanx has the crippling wounds, first strike shield. So they have, like, a ranged attack, but at that level you're not really using them. So I don't know that for Warlord, that the Nomad is a super attractive race to have with Warlord. I haven't had a chance to check out the other warlord version units for the other classes, especially the builder classes. So that would be worth a gander to see what those look like. I've only been exposed to the early sorcerer class units, like the apprentice, and then the full range of the warlord class on Nomad. So I'm not sure. I think the race of Nomad can work for people, but I don't know that it would usurp like my other favorite races that I like to use a lot. So yeah, so again, thanks for watching. If you haven't seen my other videos, check out my other video series. I've done a lot of crazy challenges, like just using tier 1 irregulars, and that's all I can use to defeat 5 Allied Emperor AI opponents, or just using my 2 starting heroes, like my leader and plus my first joinable hero, and I disband everything else, and so I beat the entire game, 5 Allied Emperor AI opponents, with just 2 units, with just those 2 heroes, by being very careful and strategic. Like, I think those series are a lot of fun, so if you haven't seen those, go check those out as well. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.